Hi there, Jess in the Rada Kitchen. Thanks for joining me. Today we are going to make a country style dinner from scratch. We are making homemade chicken and noodles. We're going to make a Texas style peanut butter sheet cake. If you've ever had like the cafeteria style dessert, it's one of my favorites. And then we're gonna make some garlic chive butter that you can put on top of some biscuits or some bread to go with our meal. Here I have about a 6-pound whole fryer chicken, and we are going to simmer this in water. I have some water already in my stock pot that we're going to put the chicken in. I'm also going to add to this some chopped garlic and onion for our soup base here. And to that, a couple of bay leaves that we'll remove later, and then just some black pepper and salt. And we'll adjust the seasoning as we go as well. And then my chicken. Make sure the cavity fills. And then if you need to add more water on top, go ahead and do that. And we're going to set this on the stove over medium-low heat or in your Instapot just to simmer this. So let's start on our egg noodles. I'm going to start with 3 cups of just all-purpose flour. And then to that, for our dry ingredients, 2 teaspoons of baking powder and some salt. And then we're going to add 4 eggs. I have about 4 tablespoons of milk here. And then I have some extra flour on the side that we're going to use if our hands start to get sticky, but I'm just going to mix this up by hand. And then we're going to roll it out and cut it with a pizza cutter. And our noodles are going to be rich and fluffy and eggy and so good when we drop it down in our broth. So this is what we're looking for here in our end product, just a nice big ball of our dough, and then we're ready to roll this out. So we're gonna take a little bit of this flour and just dust our surface. Mix it around here and get our dough down. I'm probably gonna let's do half at a time. This is a lot. And if you don't need all these noodles at once, they freeze really, really well. So, all right, let's go ahead and start rolling. And we want them to be about 1/4 of an inch thick. All right, I think that looks about good. So with my Rada pizza cutter, we're just gonna come in and start making our noodles. And then we're just gonna come back through. Obviously, they're not all going to be the exact same size, that's okay. And then I'm gonna toss these into our bowl. And if you need to add a little flour so that they don't stick together, go ahead and do that. So our chicken is simmering away on the pot on the stove, and I'm just going to chop up some celery and carrots that we're going to add at the end. So we're gonna jump to the dessert portion of our country style dinner, and this is our Texas peanut butter sheet cake. So I'm gonna start with my dry ingredients. I have 2 cups of sifted flour, and to that, 2 cups of sugar. And then I'm gonna add in my salt and my baking powder, and I have 1 teaspoon of each. And just give it a stir. On our stove, we are going to bring to a boil 1 cup of water, 1 cup of butter, so I have 2 sticks here. And then some peanut butter, about 1/4 a cup. We are going to mix up our dry and wet ingredients. So here I have that peanut butter and sugar that we brought to a boil on the stove. I'm gonna dump that in our flour. And we're gonna mix that up. So for the rest of our wet ingredients, about a teaspoon of vanilla. And then our buttermilk. And 2 eggs. And just make sure it's all mixed in well. Just going to dump our cake batter onto our greased pan, and then it's going to go into a preheated oven at 350 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. So my chicken is all the way cooked through, and shut my heat off here, and we're just gonna pull this out and let it rest. I'm trying to be careful not to splash yourself. See, it's falling off the bone. That's exactly how we want this. There we go. All right, so to our stock, if you need to, go ahead and skim off any fat that's remaining on the top, which I've already done here. So our broth is looking pretty clear. To this, I'm adding half a cup of white wine. You could add some chicken broth, or you could add in some chicken base at this point too. And then for seasonings, some thyme. And cracked black pepper. And then my vegetables, which I just have some celery and carrots here. You could add in mushrooms, some green peas right at the end before serving are also really good in this. But we want these to be tender before we put our noodles in. So here I have 1 pound of powdered sugar in my bowl, and on the stove we are going to warm up 1/3 cup of milk plus 1 tablespoon, half a cup of butter, and then half a cup of peanut butter. So to our powdered sugar, a little bit of vanilla. Then we're going to add in that melted peanut butter and butter and milk. And just make sure you mix that up really well. So we're ready to put our noodles down into our pot, and I just turned the temperature back up on this so that it would boil our noodles. And our vegetables are just tender crisp. We don't want them to become mushy, but our noodles are going to cook really quickly once we get them all in. And give it a stir. So here you can see all of our noodles are puffed out and little clouds of deliciousness. We're gonna just give it a good stir, turn my temperature back down. And to this, we're going to add our shredded chicken. And adjust your seasoning as needed. Go ahead and check that broth, and you could add more salt and pepper or thyme. Sometimes I'll throw in a little bit of dill. Let's chop up our chives for our chive butter. Okay, so I'm just going to use my fork here to whip up my butter. You could use a hand mixer, but this is just as easy. Toss in our chives. And then to this, a little bit of fresh cracked pepper. Just a touch of garlic powder, and then give it another good mix. So I'm just going to scoop this into my cute little mason jar to store my butter. Our cake has cooled, and you can see it has this nice spongy texture to it. And we're ready to add our frosting. If your frosting gets a little stiff, just add a little bit more milk and whip it up. All right, that looks good. Just chop up a little bit of fresh parsley here to give it that pop of freshness and pretty green color. We are ready to dish this up. So our country style dinner is complete. I have some of my delicious homemade chicken and noodles. So creamy and fluffy. This is the perfect Sunday dinner. Set that aside. And then our chive garlic butter, which I'm gonna put on top of our biscuits. You could use country bread on here, would be really yummy too. And then finally, brings me right back to childhood, our peanut butter Texas style sheet cake. Thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to check us out at radacutlery.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel to get more delicious dinner recipes just like this one.